Guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking onto this video, and please don't forget to subscribe before you leave. I must have gotten at least 100 comments on my Pricked collection review video, which I will link up here in case you guys haven't caught it yet, but so many of you wanted me to do a shade comparison, comparing all of the colors we have in Pricked to similar colors we already have in other palettes from Jeffree Star Cosmetics, and that's exactly what I've done. I went through each and every palette. I literally opened up Pricked. I opened up each and every palette that I have because I'm also doing a new updated ranking video that will be going up super soon, so definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, guys, I literally opened it. I went through each and every color, eyeballed the crap out of them, and I figured out all of the ones that are similar. And what we're gonna be doing today is going row by row and testing out and swatching each one to make sure that they're different, so you can really hone in on if you want to buy this palette or should you skip on it. Today you're gonna find out, so definitely stay tuned. And without any further ado, let's jump in and analyze the crap out of the Pricked palette. Starting with the first row, the first shade we're going to be talking about is Fashion Whore. What I thought that was really similar to was Orange Crush from the Mini Breaker palette, as well as Orange Juice from the Jawbreaker palette. If we look at them swatched side by side here, the first one there is Fashion Whore, the second one is Orange Crush, and the third one is Orange Juice. We can clearly see that there's no repeat shades here. The first one is clearly a lot brighter than that last one there. So Fashion Whore and Orange Juice are slightly similar, but overall they are not repeat shades of each other. Fashion Whore definitely has a gold shift to it, I would say, whereas the Orange Juice shade is more stark orange. Moving on to the second row, the first shade we're going to be talking about is Cutting Edge. What I thought that was really similar to was Fluffer from the Orgy palette. And if we look at them side by side, that first one there is the Cutting Edge and the second one is Fluffer. These are absolutely not similar. I do think that we could probably find a really similar dupe of the Cutting Edge shade in what we have. But again, it's more of an overall translucent kind of setting your eye shade. So I feel like every palette does need one. So I feel like it was necessary to this specific palette, even though we may have it several times in other different palettes. Now moving on to the second shade in that second row, we have Vitamin C Word. And what I thought that was really similar to was Double Scoop from the Mini Breaker palette. The first one there is Vitamin C Word, the second one is Double Scoop. And as you can see, they are kind of close, but that Double Scoop shade definitely pulls more orange, a little bit of a deeper yellowy orange. And the other shade, the Vitamin C Word, is very unique in my opinion. So here we're definitely not getting a repeat shade. The next shade in the second row is Unpeeled Pleasure. This was giving me really tongue pop vibes. That's from the Blood Sugar palette. But if we look at them side by side, that first one there is of course Unpeeled Pleasure. The second one is Tongue Pop. They are not similar at all. One is a way brighter and one is darker, so we're not getting a repeat shade here. The next shade we're going to be talking about, the last one in the second row, is Pulp Addiction. What I thought that was really similar to was Candy Floss from the Blood Sugar palette, as well as Snack from the Jawbreaker palette. If we look at all three of them swatched side by side, the first one is Pulp Addiction, the second one is Candy Floss, and the third one is Snack. We can clearly see that they are not repeat shades of each other. I thought that the first one and the third one there would be really similar, but you can clearly see on camera here they're not. All three are such stunning pink metallics, and I love each and every one of them. Moving on to the third row, the next shade we're going to be talking about is Orange Fatale. And I thought that was really similar to Suck from the Jawbreaker palette. Now, if we look at them swatched, the first one there is Orange Fatale, and the second one is Suck from the Jawbreaker palette. We can clearly see these are not the same. The Orange Fatale shade is a lot more pigmented, a lot more in-your-face bright orange, if that makes sense, whereas the Suck shade is more muted. I was thinking these were going to be exact dupes of each other, but luckily they're not. So again, here we have no repeat shade. And moving on to the fourth row, the first shade we're going to be talking about is Thorny. What I thought that was really similar to was Charm from the Androgyny palette. Now, if we look at them swatched side by side here, the first shade is Thorny and the second one is Charmed. And we can clearly see they are not the same. The Thorny shade is clearly deeper here. Charm is a lot lighter, so there's no repeat shade. The next shade we're looking at is Forged, and that I thought was really similar to Flaming Hot from the Conspiracy palette, Prick from the Blood Sugar palette, and Licorice from the Jawbreaker palette. Now, if we look at a swatch of them all four side by side, we can see that they're slightly similar here, but they all pull differently. I really feel like they might look similar on the eye, but we can't exactly say that they are repeat shades because they aren't. You can clearly see here that they have different undertones as well as different depths of red. The next shade we're looking at is Double Crossed. What I thought this was really similar to was Wyoming from the Star Ranch palette, Fetish from the Androgyny palette, and Intravenous from the Blood Sugar palette. Now, looking at all four of them swatched side by side, the first one there is Double Cross, the second one is Wyoming, the third one is Fetish, and the fourth one is Blood Sugar. Nope, no repeat shades here. They're all pulling differently, and I love each and every one of the browns. Now, moving on to one of my favorite shades in the entire palette, and that is Unblunted. What I thought that was really similar to was Donor from the Blood Sugar palette, Lick from the Thirsty palette, Slice from the Mini Breaker palette, and Soaking Sun from the Mini Orgy palette. So if we're going down the line, the first one there is Unblunted, then we have the shade Donor, followed by the shade Lick, and then we have the shade Slice, and lastly we have Soaking Sun. We can clearly see here we're not getting any repeat shades. All of these are like, I want a palette of just these colors. They are all so freaking beautiful. They shine completely differently. If anything, that second one and the last one there are a little bit similar, but that is not the Unblunted shade, so we can honestly say that there's no repeat shade here as well. Moving on to the last row, the first shade we're going to be looking at is probably the nicest gold I've ever seen, and that is the shade Glimmer of Hope. What I thought that was really similar to was Rich Bitch from the Beauty Killer palette, Conspiracy from the Conspiracy palette, and CEO from the Blood Money palette. If we look at them swatched side by side here, look at that Glimmer of Hope. Can we just take a moment? Holy crap. First shade is Glimmer of Hope. The second one is Rich Bitch. The third one is Conspiracy. And the fourth one is CEO. You can clearly see here how they're completely distinctly different. Some of them are pulling green, some of them are pulling a completely different color. Nothing is quite like that Glimmer of Hope. And truth be told, I think this might be my favorite shimmer that Jeffree has ever put out. There is nothing that I've seen that's like this or even close to this other than Natasha Denona Shadows. I am completely in raptures. And if you look at that second shade there, that one is Rich Bitch, and that is from his first ever palette, Beauty Killer. Can we take a moment to recognize the growth in this palette? Look at the difference in the quality there. That Glimmer of Hope shade, I cannot get enough of. I would literally buy this entire palette just for that shade. Crazy, but totally true. But as you guys can see here, there is no repeat shade. And moving on to the next shade, Slice Me Open. I love this color. The first shade I thought it was similar to was Not a Fact from the Conspiracy palette, then Extraction from the Blood Sugar palette, and Raspberry from the Jawbreaker palette. Now, if we look at them swatched side by side here, the first one is Slice Me Open, the second shade is Not a Fact, the third one is Extraction, and the fourth one is Raspberry. I will admit that these all look relatively similar, but I do think that they all pull differently. If we're being honest, they all are clearly different, but they do pull similarly. Would they probably look similar on the eye? I'm gonna say yes. I feel like here we're gonna get the closest to a repeat shade out of the entire palette. Though it's not an exact repeat, it is very similar to the other shades, I would say yes. Moving on to the last shade in the palette, we have Deadly Intentions. And what I thought this was similar to was Black Rainbow from the Beauty Killer palette, Executioner from the Bloodlust palette, Black Card Limit from the Blood Money palette, and Angel of Death from the Cremated palette. If we look at them all swatched side by side, the first one there is Deadly Intentions, the second one is Black Rainbow, the third one is Executioner, then we have Black Card Limit from Blood Money, and finally is the Angel of Death from Cremated. Let's be honest here, they all are pretty freaking similar. They're all the similar concept in that they're a black shadow and they have packed in it a glitter that kind of corroborates with whatever palette it's in. In my personal opinion, I don't reach for these. I don't really think it's necessary to have one in each and every palette, but they're not technically repeat shades because they all do have a different shade of glitter inside of them, making them different. In my opinion, I think we have enough of these colors and I would be happy not to see them anymore in any other palette. But can we say that they're exact repeats? No, but they all are very similar, just different color glitters inside. All right, guys, as you saw for yourself, a majority of the colors are not at all all duplicated here. If you've been eyeing the Pricked palette, I highly suggest you dive in and get it because you will not regret it. I'm not sure if you caught my most recent video. I ranked each and every one of the Jeffree Star Cosmetics palettes. I will link that up here in case you guys missed it. If you caught that, you know how high Pricked is on my list already. I've only had it for a couple of days, but given how beautiful it is, I'm wearing it today, given how beautiful it is, how much I'm in love with the color story, it immediately went so high up on my list. I freaking love it. And if you're eyeing it and you're worried that you already have so many duplicate shades from other JSC shades, don't worry. Jeffree always makes sure not to do this. I have done this type of video several other times. We rarely get a duplicate shade. There have been some that have been similar. Just like here, there were some that were kind of similar, but are they the exact same? No. If you have been eyeing this palette, if it is something that you've really, really loved, but you're a little worried that you have repeat shades from other JSC palettes you own, rest assured there are very little to no repeat shades in this palette, so go for it. If it's in your cart, just press checkout, girl. You deserve it. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope that if you were deciding on this palette, I kind of tipped you towards getting it. I personally very much enjoy having it as part of my collection. I know you will too. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you like this style of video. Please leave me a comment down below. Did you think there were more similar shades that I missed? What did you think of the shade comparisons? Was I off on any of my ideas about them? Let me know, please. And of course, if you haven't yet, please make sure you're subscribed. It really helps me out when you guys subscribe. And I will catch you on the next video. Bye, guys.